Hi, it's Bonnie Gray, and I'm here with my friend Henriette.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming and being here so you can share your story with us today.
Of course.
I met Henriette when we were both in a mom's group, and Caleb was just born and Josh was 2 years old. So now it's 7 years later.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yes. Well, this week in our Spiritual Whitespace book club, we are in the chapter where we talk about being cut up and also being separated from our hearts. And I shared the story about the screen door. So really quickly, I hope that you got a chance to read the chapter on the screen door. My parents were just divorced and my father was coming for his first visit. And they got into a fight, an argument, and I was being thrown back and forth in the screen door. And I think that that's a story that I don't like to share. I don't see any need to share it. But what I've learned is that there's a moment in that experience that is real.
Yeah.
And God really loves and cherishes. And it's the key to really bringing my real self and my real story into God's presence.
Yeah.
And it affects my everyday.
Right.
Don't we tend to like push ourselves to the side when things are getting stressful?
Oh my gosh, I know I do. Yeah. I don't need one more problem. So it's like a triage situation at home. And I usually just kind of numb myself. And just work on everything else.
Exactly. I think we go into that autopilot mode because we're used to doing it as little girls. We've kind of adapted to our environment to just, I don't want to be a problem on top of everything else, right?
Yeah.
So this was one story that I shared, but you talk about numbing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that reads into your story about numbing.
Yeah. Well, I think I did a lot of it. And I think now I might just do it a different way, but I know when I was young, I grew up in a home that was very dysfunctional, and I was put in the role of being my mom's sort of protector. And so when my mom left, I really lost my footing. I couldn't deal. I needed to just numb myself. And the way I chose to do it was with anything really, alcohol or any sort of drugs or reckless behavior, just to numb myself. And it led me down this path, of course, where it was just so much dysfunction, so much despair and darkness. I was 19, I became pregnant. I was still drinking. I was still partying.
Yeah.
My life was pretty much just kind of out of control.
Yeah.
And
even though when I guess when you were drinking, it felt like everything was good and okay, right? Yeah.
Right. It's like when I was drinking, things were perfect. I was confident. You feel like everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's, those things that you try to fill up that void with definitely have a way of destroying your life. And so it did that to mine. And it brought me all the way down to the bottom of being pregnant. I had an abortion. And then about 4 months after the abortion, I started having panic attacks.
Oh, okay.
They were huge. I remember my first one so vividly. I really thought I was dying. I felt the room was closing in on me. I was terrified. My heart was beating out of my chest.
Yeah.
There was nowhere for me to be safe. Just completely fearful of everything.
Yeah.
And but up until that point, I felt that void.
Yeah. And it's interesting when I first met Henriette, because we'd known each other for a few years in the mom's group, and Henrietta's a very godly, very encouraging friend and a person. And so it wasn't until many years later, we weren't in the mom's group anymore, but I ran into her. She's like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And it was the season of my heart coming alive and awakened to memories. I was having these panic attacks. I said, "I'm not doing it at all." Yeah. But as I shared this with her, she was sharing with me her story, and I just can't tell you how less alone I felt.
Yeah.
And to know that there's something that's going on inside my heart with that the anxiety is trying to tell me about, and it wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
It felt bad.
Right.
It's like, I don't want any of this, but it's actually good because the story and who I am and my heart, being connected to my heart, was really important to God.
Right.
And it's interesting you said that you were so strong with your mom.
Yeah, I was the protector. I was the one who was kind of always there. And
and isn't that interesting? And I don't know if this is connecting to you, but I think that I found as I go and speak and share this message of finding rest and opening your heart to God, that the encouragers, the people that are really strong, are the ones that really struggle with these feelings or experiences, in our everyday life. And it doesn't even have to be as dramatic as, the stories that maybe we're sharing, but we just tend to put ourselves to the side.
We do.
I mean, there's already a lot of times there's so much going on, and as encouragers and the strong ones, we will tend to be like, I don't want to add to people's burdens or troubles, or what would people think about me?
Yes.
But as I shared in this chapter about the screen door, God was saying, no, Bonnie, I love you.
Yeah.
And not just the you that is encouraging others or being strong for others. I love you.
Yeah.
The little child in you, the little girl in you. And there's this part of the book that people have really been resonating with. It's like a prayer at the end of this chapter that I wrote about. I wanted to read it for us. It says, I say, encourage her to believe there is a place for her in this world. Comfort her when she cries and doesn't believe. Be patient. Show her kindness. Don't give up on her, on that little girl in you and in me. And
so beautiful.
And I think that that's what we all long for.
It is.
Is there somebody in our lives that can actually notice and say, I see you.
Yeah.
And I hear you.
Right.
And I value this part of your story. Not just in the past, but even today.
Yeah.
As you're feeling struggling or down or uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, that your journey where you gave God, I guess, permission to enter into your story and to bring that little girl in you, to him, what has that been like?
Well,
and how's that journey like?
Yeah, it's really kind of a neat thing for me to know that God saw me at my worst and at my bottom, because I never had this feeling that I needed to come complete and perfect to him. He was that thing I needed to fill that void. And, there's nothing greater than that. There is no better peace or love or joy than you can have of letting Jesus just come into your heart and take over. I mean, I was at my wit's end. I couldn't physically do it anymore with my panic attacks. And so it was just that comfort that I needed. Yeah. But it is neat to see that God will meet you wherever you are.
And do you find that that's true now? And not just in the past, but it's kind of like going against the autopilot, which is like, put myself to the side and let me take time for myself.
Yeah.
How am I really feeling? And can I be honest with God?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not just us back then. Don't you feel like even now?
It is. It is. And I constantly feel like God is telling me, be real, be who you are. Yeah. Talk to me. I want to know you.
Yes.
Don't put this facade on. Yes, everything looks perfect on Facebook, but I want people to see you, and I want to see you.
Yeah, I want to see you. Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that, the encouragement for this journey and this reading is really about what I learned about Whitespace, is that like a painter clears everything from the canvas so that she can choose what's most beautiful, because we have to make choices.
Yeah.
And so are we making any choices to nurture our spirit and our soul and to be us, where we're not worried about anybody else?
Right.
And trying to be whatever it is that others want us to be, or maybe like we want to be, so that we can be liked or accepted.
Yeah.
Because it's scary, right? Who wants to be alone?
Yeah. And you just want to fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know, and you want to be like everybody else. And
join all the, but actually everybody has a story. That's what I have found. If you start sharing, everybody has their own story.
That's right.
So let's take time for that little girl in each of us. And, you know, I've never been a girly girl. I had a little difficulty with God at first with his message about taking care of the child in me and making room for that little girl. And he gave me this wonderful passage. It just really changed everything for me. Yeah. It's in Mark chapter 10, verse 13 to 16. Jesus was irate. And this is interesting. Jesus was irate. The disciples were keeping children away from him. And he said, don't push these children away. Don't ever get between them and me.
Yes.
And I started reading that for me. Like, don't let anything get between me and you. Jesus is saying, the little girl in you. He said, unless you accept God's kingdom in the simplicity of a child, you'll never get in. And then gathering the children in his arms, he laid his hands of blessing on them. Yeah. So God wants to say, I see you. Yeah. I hear you, and I love you. Yeah. Just the way you are. Will you give me a chance? Can you give me a chance? So, take some time. You know, I think when we feel most stressed, we tend to immediately, you know, get into that survival mode, but actually God wants us to come to him and make time for ourselves. It's a really, it's actually a good trigger for our heart. Yeah. And so, like, rather than shaming the child in us, like when we're getting stressed, like, why are you so stressed? Stop it!
Stop it! Pull it together.
Exactly. Yeah. Why are you complaining?
Yeah. Exactly.
But instead, I think that God just wants us to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. A biker just drove bike past us, but so God just wants us to be honest.
He does.
Yeah. All right. So we hope that you've enjoyed this time with us, and Henriette, I want to thank you so much for sharing and so courageously, bravely with us.
Yeah, thank you for letting me share. This has been so good for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, because I think that we all deal with, we have our own addictions.
Yeah, we do.
We do. Yeah. So I think what you're doing is just opening up opportunity for us to share our stories. So thank you so much.
Oh, I love you.
Love you too. All right, so we love you too. I do, because you're sharing your stories and your comments. I love to hear what resonates for you in today's video. Thank you so much for being on this journey, and it's a great opportunity to also talk about my compassion trip, because we're going to be meeting other little boys and girls. So I hope that you got a chance to see my other video where I share about that, and for you to pray for me and join me, and I can't wait to see what God shows us.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.